The date is February 3, 2026, and inside the sleek, glass-walled headquarters of Netflix in Los Gatos, California, a decision has been executed that will likely reshape the landscape of celebrity culture and royal history for decades to come. The morning fog had barely lifted off the Santa Cruz Mountains when the final signatures were affixed to documents that had been drafted in absolute secrecy over the preceding months. At exactly 9:15 in the morning, 2 sealed envelopes left the building. They were dispatched by the same legal and executive teams, born from the same boardroom strategy sessions, but they were destined for 2 completely different worlds, carrying messages that were diametrically opposed. One envelope was bound for the Superior Court of Los Angeles, carried by a courier with strict instructions to file before noon to catch the midday news cycle. The other was addressed to Kensington Palace in London, marked for the urgent and personal attention of the private secretary to the Princess of Wales. The first envelope contained a legal declaration of war. It was the official filing of Netflix versus Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, a high-stakes breach of contract lawsuit seeking $100 million in damages for what the streaming giant has termed an orchestrated scheme to exploit prestige without performance. The second envelope, however, carried something entirely different. It contained a formal, beautifully drafted invitation to Catherine, the Princess of Wales, to spearhead a new, multi-year educational documentary series rooted in heritage, humanity, and hope. These 2 letters represent more than just business decisions. They are a symbolic line drawn in the sand by the most powerful media company in the world. They signal that the era of paying for celebrity buzz is over, and the era of investing in substantive authority has begun. The streaming wars have shifted from a battle for eyeballs to a battle for credibility, and in that shift, the Sussexes have found themselves on the wrong side of the ledger. To understand how we arrived at this moment of absolute bifurcation, we must look at the legal action brewing against the Sussexes. This lawsuit did not appear out of thin air. It began brewing in the summer of 2024, as frustration within the streaming giant mounted, but it wasn't formalized until January 2025. The core of the complaint is straightforward and devastating in its simplicity. In September 2020, Harry and Meghan signed an exclusive 5-year production deal with Netflix. They pledged to create a robust slate of high-value content projects, including scripted series, documentaries, feature films, and children's programming. In return for this promise, Netflix advanced them $40 million and committed to a total package worth up to $100 million. It was a deal born of the pandemic-era streaming boom, a gamble that the couple's star power would translate into a content empire. But by January 2025, after nearly 5 years on the payroll, the output was dismal. Only 3 documentary series had been released, none of which met the original scope, scale, or quality benchmarks promised in the initial pitch meetings. The flagship reality series, Harry and Meghan, released in 2022, was a commercial hit, but was plagued by production delays, last-minute reworks, and clashes over creative control that left executives exhausted. The follow-up, Heart of Invictus, underperformed significantly in viewership and was largely salvaged by Netflix's own internal production team, stepping in to finish the work when the Sussex team fell behind. The third project, Live to Lead, was a critical flop that reportedly had minimal actual involvement from the couple themselves, serving as little more than a licensing deal for interviews conducted by others. Netflix's internal valuation of the delivered content stands at roughly $25 million. The lawsuit alleges that the additional expenses incurred in development hell and recovery efforts amount to another $15 million. When you add the opportunity cost of tied-up funds and the reputational damage of failed announcements, Netflix is claiming a total loss that justifies the $100 million demand. But the lawsuit goes deeper than just bad math. It outlines a pattern of behavior that paints a picture of professional negligence. The complaint details missed deadlines, repeatedly canceled or unfocused meetings, vague and derivative creative proposals, and a failure to appear for required development sessions. It describes a production environment characterized by chaos, where ideas were pitched with enthusiasm but abandoned the moment the real work began. However, the most explosive element of the filing is the allegation of fraud and intentional misrepresentation. Netflix is asserting that Harry and Meghan never actually intended to fulfill the broad scope of the deal. The suit argues that they used their names merely to secure upfront cash and executive-level influence, with no intention of doing the heavy lifting required to produce scripted content or feature films. This moves the case from a simple contract dispute to a fraud case, which carries significantly heavier penalties and, crucially, makes the debt much harder to discharge in bankruptcy. It suggests a premeditated strategy to siphon resources from the studio while delivering the bare minimum required to keep the checks clearing. While Harry and Meghan were being served with papers that threatened their financial existence, a very different conversation was beginning in London. Netflix had done the unthinkable. They pivoted from the rebel royals to the future queen. The pitch deck sent to Kensington Palace outlined a vision for a project tentatively titled Legacy of Learning, a Royal Voyage Through Knowledge. This was not a reality show. It was not a tell-all. It was a proposal for a 7-part educational docuseries that would focus on historical storytelling tied to British heritage, modern social issues including early childhood development, veteran rehabilitation, environmental stewardship, and mental health. The proposal was meticulous, respectful, and focused entirely on the work, devoid of the personal drama that had defined the Sussex collaborations. Netflix realized that the Sussex brand was built on the shaky foundation of celebrity and grievance, whereas the Wales brand was built on the bedrock of authority and service. They approached Catherine not as a star, but as a statesman. A senior palace aide confirmed that Her Royal Highness received the proposal and found it thoughtful, noting that it aligned perfectly with her charitable vision. Indeed, just weeks earlier, during her 44th birthday message, Catherine had emphasized her intent to deepen the national conversation on the emotional and cognitive development of the next generation. The synergy was undeniable. Netflix offered her a global platform to amplify her work without asking her to compromise her dignity. They were offering her a microphone, not a magnifying glass. The news of this royal pivot did not go unnoticed in Montecito. According to sources close to the Sussexes, Meghan Markle reacted with absolute fury. She reportedly called the new partnership offer to Catherine a blatant betrayal and a covert operation of displacement. Privately, she accused Catherine of colluding with Netflix for months, alleging that the princess was capitalizing on the groundwork the Sussexes had laid. She accused Catherine of commercializing her royal title, the very thing Meghan herself had been criticized for since 2023. Meghan viewed this not as a business decision by Netflix, but as a personal attack, a deliberate attempt to freeze the Sussexes out of industry credibility by reinforcing institutional favoritism. She saw it as the ultimate usurpation, a move designed to replace her global royal brand with the authentic royal brand. Multiple reports indicate that Meghan personally reached out to a senior Netflix executive, requesting that the company terminate all discussions with Catherine on the grounds of royal interference. The request was denied, reportedly with a cold firmness that shocked the Sussex team. Netflix had moved on. They were no longer interested in the drama of the Sussex court. They were interested in the prestige of the Kensington court. The executive allegedly told Meghan's representative that business decisions are based on performance metrics and audience demand, effectively shutting down any further debate. That same evening, Buckingham Palace issued an unusually direct statement, breaking with the tradition of silence to address the bubbling controversy. Quoting King Charles III, the statement read that Her Royal Highness, the Princess of Wales, embodies the vision of a modern constitutional monarchy rooted in service, education, and cultural stewardship. It went on to say that any collaboration advancing these values is consistent with the Crown's mission to elevate human dignity and shared history. Without ever naming Meghan, the message served as a pointed rebuttal to her accusations of betrayal. It was the emergence of what insiders are calling the Charles Doctrine. The king was no longer willing to let the Sussexes control the narrative through complaints. He was validating Netflix as a platform for education, while implicitly condemning the Sussexes' use of it for personal grievances. It was a masterclass in soft power, effectively isolating Harry and Meghan while elevating Catherine. Cornered and facing a financial precipice, Meghan's team allegedly tried to use their last weapon, the victim card. Within 24 hours of the news breaking, rumors surfaced of a secret audio clip, a previously unpublicized segment from a 2022 conference call between Meghan and two Netflix development executives. In the recording, Meghan allegedly accuses one of the producers of being tone-deaf and colonial in how they framed her ideas. The audio reportedly captures Meghan saying, "You wouldn't speak that way to Catherine. You wouldn't push back on her storyboards. But with me, everything is a fight to be heard." Meghan's camp likely hoped this leak would paint Netflix as biased and force them to settle the lawsuit to avoid a PR nightmare. Instead, legal experts warned that this strategy could backfire spectacularly. Using confidential materials outside of agreed legal parameters could invite countersuits for breach of non-disclosure agreements. Furthermore, given Netflix's well-documented attempts to assist the Sussexes and the millions of dollars invested in their success, a claim of systemic bias would be extremely hard to prove in court. The industry response to the leak was colder than expected. It didn't rally support. It cemented the perception that the Sussexes are difficult, litigious partners who record their colleagues. It signaled to every other studio in town that working with Archewell comes with the risk of being secretly recorded and publicly shamed. The fallout in Hollywood was immediate and brutal. Within hours of the Catherine news and the Sussex lawsuit becoming public, both Amazon Studios and Apple TV Plus streaming giants, once rumored to be interested in picking up the Sussexes if Netflix dropped them, issued quiet denials of any ongoing negotiations. An Apple insider told trade publications that they are not engaged with the Archewell team and have moved on. The Grifters label, first applied by a Spotify executive years ago, had stuck. The appetite for Sussex content has dried up because it is now seen as high risk and low return. Even Netflix's internal staff, who were once excited to work with the royal couple, now describe the Archewell years as a morale sinkhole, a period of wasted time and dashed expectations. As of the 1st of February 2026, Harry and Meghan's legal team has not filed a formal response to the Netflix complaint, but the deadlines are looming. Insiders suggest that unless a settlement offer is crafted by mid-February, Netflix will escalate the discovery process. This is the nightmare scenario for Harry and Meghan. Discovery would potentially include subpoenas for Archewell's internal emails, financial records, and communications regarding their production schedules. It would lay bare the chaotic reality of their business operations, revealing the gaps between their public promises and their private capabilities. Even worse, Archewell's largest remaining sponsor, a Silicon Valley philanthropy collective, has suspended future contributions pending the outcome of the lawsuit. The legal battle is no longer just a business dispute. It is a referendum on whether celebrity status can override professional accountability. For Meghan Markle, it has become clear that whatever narrative she once controlled is slipping fast. She is facing a war on two fronts: a legal war she cannot afford to lose, and a PR war she is already losing. The contrast between her frantic maneuvering and Catherine's quiet ascent is devastating. While Meghan scrambles to reclaim relevance through counter-allegations and leaked audio, Princess Catherine is composed, principled, and grounded in service. The Netflix proposal to Catherine did not land in a vacuum. It came as the natural culmination of years of sustained dedication to causes larger than herself. It wasn't a gift, it was recognition. Catherine's work in the early childhood development space has long been foundational to her royal duties. As patron of the Royal Foundation Center for Early Childhood, she has led groundbreaking research. Her campaigns have been hailed by experts as transformative. Since 2021, she has visited over 70 early learning centers and partnered with major universities. Beyond early years, she has been the royal family's most visible patron in mental health awareness. Her recent work with veterans has expanded her portfolio even further. Catherine's appearances are never just ceremonial. They are working visits, often followed by detailed action reports. It is no surprise that Netflix, smarting from the Sussex debacle, would turn to someone like Catherine, who offers substance over spectacle. They wanted a partner who would show up on time, prepared, and ready to work, not one who required constant management. The proposed series, Legacy of Learning, reflects this substance. The concept spans 6 episodes, each anchored by a core royal theme: origins, echoes, dignity, green soul, resilience, and Mother Nature's wisdom. The series would weave together footage from Catherine's existing charity visits, newly filmed interviews with subject matter experts, and personal narration from the princess herself. Unlike the Sussex projects, Netflix executives have reportedly structured this proposal around measurable social impact, with deliverables tied to education outcomes. The reaction from within the UK and beyond has been overwhelmingly positive, with major newspapers praising Catherine's substantive elegance and evolution from royal consort to cultural ambassador. The project promises to be everything the Sussex deal was supposed to be but never was: impactful, educational, and universally respected. The financial implications of the lawsuit for Harry and Meghan are catastrophic. According to leaked records from financial consultants involved in their legal preparation, their current liabilities now exceed $12 million annually, excluding potential damages. They have massive operational costs for their Montecito estate, including mortgage payments, property taxes, and maintenance. They have outstanding production expenses for projects that were never finished. They have diminishing revenue from book sales and podcast syndication. If Netflix wins the case or even settles for $30 or $40 million, the couple may be forced to take drastic measures. This could include selling the Montecito property, liquidating Archwell assets, or pursuing bridge financing from private equity or foreign investors, moves that would trigger further reputational backlash and signal the total failure of their independence experiment. A major concern for the Sussex team is the fraud allegation. If upheld, this would make any court-ordered restitution non-dischargeable in bankruptcy. This means that even if Harry and Meghan filed for Chapter 11 protection to wipe out their debts, the debt to Netflix would remain. They would be tethered to this failure for the rest of their financial lives. The lawsuit is an existential threat to their freedom. It forces them to confront the reality that they tried to build a billion-dollar brand on a foundation of victimhood, and now the bill has come due. The burn rate of their lifestyle is unsustainable without the massive influx of cash they once enjoyed, and there are no new benefactors lining up to fill the void. Perhaps even more damaging than the financial implications is the complete erosion of public goodwill. A poll published on the 1st of February 2026 showed that 62% of UK respondents believe Netflix was justified in suing, while only 11% believe Meghan and Harry fulfilled their obligations. 72% support Netflix's proposed series with Princess Catherine. This marks a stark contrast to 2020, when the Sussexes were seen by many as brave reformers. Today, they are increasingly viewed as entitled figures who cashed in on a crown they rejected. The narrative has shifted from David versus Goliath to employee versus employer, and the public generally understands that if you take the money, you have to do the job. While Harry and Meghan wrestle with courtrooms and collapsing credibility, Catherine quietly builds a body of work rooted in continuity and compassion. She does not need to explain her purpose, she lives it. She does not need to threaten networks to get airtime. They come to her. The King's support for her project highlights a new era for the monarchy, one where media engagement is strategic, educational, and dignified. Charles understands soft power, and he sees the Netflix deal not as a threat, but as a battleground he is determined to win. He recognizes that in the digital age, the monarchy must occupy the screens of the world, but it must do so with content that uplifts rather than divides. The internal dynamic at Archwell is reportedly fracturing under the pressure. Staff morale is at an all-time low, with employees fearing for their jobs as the financial freeze sets in. There are whispers of a talent exodus, with key aides and creatives quietly updating their resumes and reaching out to contacts at other agencies. The realization that the ship is taking on water has led to a scramble for the lifeboats. Meanwhile, in London, the mood is one of quiet confidence. The team around the Princess of Wales is energized by the Netflix proposal, seeing it as a validation of their long-term strategy. They played the long game, prioritizing impact over attention, and now they are reaping the rewards. As the days tick down to the legal deadlines, the silence from Montecito grows heavier. The initial fury has given way to the cold reality of legal strategy. They are trapped. If they fight and lose, they are ruined. If they settle, they admit defeat and lose their capital. And all the while, the shadow of Catherine's success looms over them. The Princess of Wales is not just winning the PR war. She is rewriting the rules of the game. She is showing that in the long run, duty outlasts drama, and legacy is built by what you give, not what you take. Her silence in the face of their noise has become her most powerful weapon. The final act of this drama has not yet been written, but the trajectory is clear. The Sussexes are on a collision course with reality, and the crash will be spectacular. The Netflix lawsuit is the receipt for 5 years of squandered opportunities. And as the world watches the legal machinery gear up, the image of Harry and Meghan standing alone, stripped of their Hollywood allies and their royal safety net, serves as a cautionary tale about the perils of trading substance for celebrity. The letters that left Los Gatos on that January morning didn't just carry legal and business proposals, they carried a verdict. One couple was found wanting, and the other was found worthy. And in the ruthless court of public opinion and corporate accountability, there is no appeal for a breach of trust. The story of the Sussexes in Hollywood was supposed to be a triumph of independence. Instead, it is ending as a tragedy of incompetence.